in the previous part.
Okay, but where is Sonic? Why, Sonic was supposed to be here too? I mean, I know Eggman wouldn't like it, but you know. Sonic's life looks completely different. His friends never failed him.
How did you know it wasn't the real world?
Tails! You just told me, Fox Boy.
How was he supposed to comment on that?
That's absurd.
Then he thought he was an android, so that doesn't count. December, perhaps? That was about being anti-hero, but now a second thing. Is Shadow, especially in his own game, really edgy? To start with, if someone had asked me about this 2 years ago, I would have said that of course Shadow is definitely edgy. After all, today's meaning of the word came from him, from a joke about his game. Who would be more edgy than Shadow the Hedgehog himself? Anyway, I have the impression that many people link this word directly with the time in which this game was released, as if the whole dark period and all the games that were made then were edgy with assumptions. But during these 15 years, the meaning of the word has already detached from the world of games and went its own way. And I, believe me, while working on this very stretched video, had a lot of time to think about this issue. My conclusions turned out to be kinda twisted.
I've said before many times how I hate people using the word edgy because it's literally the most meaningless descriptive word in existence.
Fans like to forget that this word has a meaning and you can read it in dictionaries. But is the official objective meaning of the word what we really mean? Let's put Shadow away from a moment and take Lara Croft. I mean the real Lara Croft from the first Tomb Raider, not the newest where her personality is, well, just a shadow of the original. According to dictionaries, you could say about her that she is edgy because her game revolutionized these times. A strong, sexy woman in the main role, guns, danger, riding what is at hand. All the elements that, according to some, are sufficient to make the game edgy. But no. And for a change, check out Bayonetta. She does the same, but we immediately feel her behavior is edgy. That's what my friend said when he played her game for the first time and saw her adjusting her glasses with a gun. Such a detail and how significant. Supported of course by other things. Shoe shooting, defiant flexing during attacks, flirty glances at the camera. Lara Croft does not do such things. I mean, she can do some of them of course because she is not a super powerful witch, but I think you get the point.
As long as there's music, I'll keep on dancing.
Lara Croft focuses all her attention on what she is doing. She approaches everything with natural seriousness and practicality, does not do anything that will not give her any advantage. So why is Bayonetta acting like this? To look cool. Bayonetta puts special effort to draw attention to herself, shows that she enjoys the fight, consciously performs some unhelpful activities to appear as cool as possible, simply showing off to the opponent, or to the player. I think the famous Urban Dictionary catches best where the problem lies. Edgy is not so much about being cool or provocative, it's about trying to look that way, which can sometimes result in becoming ridiculous or exaggerated. What, however, does not bother Bayonetta. So, can we say our Black Hedgehog is edgy?
The answer is yes and no.
Notice that Shadow is not trying to make an impression with the way he fights. Of course, to some extent you can argue which of the things he does are really necessary, but in general, when you think about it longer, all his breathtaking moves, kicks and jumps have practical use in combat. He does not flaunt, he does not add any smiles to this all. He uses a weapon, but because, as I mentioned earlier, it would be impractical to avoid it. He gladly evokes chaos attacks because they are hellishly dangerous. He drives vehicles even though he can easily keep up with Sonic because, certainly because a vehicle takes some of his damage. Shadow has a lot more in common with Lara Croft than Bayonetta. Except for the color scheme. He is genuinely concerned with what is going on around him. He fights because he has to, not because he enjoys it. He doesn't look at the camera, he does not care that he is being watched. And yet, there is someone who cares about it. Sega! Yep, someone who designed the look of him and his stunning attacks. Let's face it, Shadow is a beautiful character. His design is bold and graceful even when he doesn't do anything special. Well, at the turn of the century, being as cool as Sonic was one of the 3 main guidelines for his designers, right next to being the opposite and a copy of Sonic. Yes, at the same time, seriously. The way Shadow rigs distraction, how he fights, how he makes his fiery blasts is watched like a great fireworks show. They are colorful, fast, bright, and this is how they meant to look like, so you would, in addition to the fear for Sonic's life, feel pure delight. Of course, fighting Knuckles or Sonic can be also presented that way, but you need an idea and a lot more work to it because they were designed with something else in mind. Shadow was designed to be admired. This alone makes the term edgy problematic. What if the character is cool to exaggeration not by his own choice, if it clashes with his personality? What's more, we cannot end here because we still have...
I'm Shadow the Hedgehog. I was created to bring order and justice to the humans.
For many, this is where the real pain lies when it comes to forced edginess. The character, who already had a rather exaggerated story in his debut, here gets a new version of it stretched to absurdity. Fighting extraterrestrial invaders, kinship with the alien emperor...
You were created from my blood.
Damn you! No! It's not true!
Pushing the series' main character into the background, and finally amnesia, which in turn results in the pompous monologues exclusive to this story, which Shadow gives over each defeated enemy and more often, and that dark ending laugh what makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, but are we really allowed to evaluate a character as a whole on the basis of one game which, although it was devoted exclusively to him, seemed to be a mix of unusual circumstances and identity disorders? Shadow, stop posing, you are not Bayonetta. After this game, the memory lapses ended, and Shadow didn't go back to effusive dramatization ever again. Though, a few things didn't change. By the way, funny how his fighting techniques seem to develop over time, sort of off-screen, just like his increasing abilities to use chaos energy.
Chaos control!
Anyway.
Plus, Infinite's theme song is way edgier than yours, Shadow.
Exactly. Even assuming Shadow was or is a bit edgy, can he really be accused of it when there are characters like Infinite? Each of his appearances is a real spectacle, full of majestic hovering, waving his arms, surrounding himself with cubes, adjusting his mask.
I noticed that he has this obsession with touching his forehead.
Because that's what cool, serious characters do.
Which is even more blatant in the context of how poor a person he is under this envelope. We can laugh at Shadow Overlord's monologues, but sorry, Infinite couldn't even introduce himself normally.
You may call me Infinite in the brief moments that remain to you.
His performances are a polished part of his character creation by himself. That's why, in my opinion, Shadow isn't edgy. Not today, not as I see him. Maybe for a short time he made a big deal of who he is, and sometimes he still can pop with
I'm the ultimate life form.
but usually he is very quiet and in his own way even a modest person who in edginess category easily loses even with Sonic. But if you disagree, that's okay. You have reasons for that too.
I'm Shadow the Hedgehog.
When people comment on my videos that Mephiles and Infinite are edgy, I honestly find it hilarious. As far as I can tell, Mephiles and Infinite are 2 different types of characters.
And no, if you ask, this thing is not edgy. This is just boorish. Just a reminder. Okay, I shouldn't pick on Sonic movie and its sequel, Planet for My Birthday, because Shadow won't appear in any of them, but... exactly. There are fans who are panicked by the very thought of what a tragedy it will be if Shadow never appears in any part. Well, I have news for you, kids. Of course Shadow will never appear in any part of the Sonic movie, and we should be grateful for that. I mean, how? According to what sense they supposed to put him there? How would this relate to the time of action? Sonic is yet to meet Tails and Eggman has just started chasing him. What does this have to do with the target audience and the fact that Shadow already has a story? How can people write such things at all? Sure, at the beginning of the year I posted a thing in which I urged Sega to quit gaming and start making shoes, but it wasn't serious. And people seem to be serious about that. They are seriously asking for something far worse than Boom Shadow because that thing at least existed at the same time when Sonic knew Knuckles and Amy. And this. No, okay, lol, why not? This will be perfectly doable when you wake up Shadow and let him meet Sonic years before it happened. Years before Eggman became even interested in conquering the world and looking for a weapon that would help him achieve it. Years before Sonic saw the Chaos Emerald for the first time. Of course, I admit that a lot of whining about the movie was legit. It looks like we saved it from a catastrophe. I also will not forbid anyone to write what they want on their own blog, and don't have a grudge against the authors of the fanart of the Three Cuties. And another cool remakes. But don't you think that if you ask for nonsensical detached fan service, then it can happen that Sega will give you nonsensical detached fan service? This makes me wonder, how many mistakes should we blame Sega for, and how many ourselves? What would the movie makers have thought if they had been watching our whims as closely as Sega does? Sega has been trying very hard in recent years to keep up with what fans want. No wonder, since for the last 10 years they have been practically recreating the experiment presented to us in Sonic Adventure 2. First they want to create something great, then they managed so well that it began to get out of control and, in their eyes, compete with their mascot, so they decided it was better to destroy it and pretend nothing happened. Now, when they finally realized how bad the decision was and how much Shadow means to us, they decided to come back to him and found themselves in a rather embarrassing situation. It was necessary to refigure out which version would be the best, and it was impossible to do without the help of us, fans. The thing is, fans don't know what they want, and there's no the best version. Okay, it's great that today's technology favors us. Sonic dads can watch our videos, laugh at our memes, read our questions on Sonic Twitter takeover, let us do surveys. But writing posts like this one, we are really not making their life easier. You say you want so little, but in truth you don't realize how much you demand. Each of us wants something different, each of us sees Shadow differently. Some see him as an introvert voice similar to Sonic, others as a constant grim, and others as a silent bomb always ready to pick up a gun. Some are able to like Boom Pseudo Shadow, while from others the version from Sonic X is too much... you know. We require a perfect knowledge of this character, even though half of our knowledge is largely carefree fanfiction and fanarts. Sega has slipped away their chance to grind us and now is maneuvering between these versions instead of taking the reins as in the early 2000s. What, as we can see from the reactions to Sonic Forces, is definitely not a simple matter. Just look, after all, in the Shadow story point of view, that game had everything. Caring for friends,
Omega, what happened? What's going on over there?
exchange of opinions with the main bad guy,
And the only thing of no consequence around here is that big mouth of yours.
suffering,
What is this? My head.
defending Sonic. But
No, what do you think?
instead of thinking a bit, we are throwing his Sonic Forces personality in one bag with Team Sonic Racing. If we keep kicking Sega for games that aren't bad just because they aren't perfect, then suddenly we can wake up in a world where Shadow's new valuable role will become another Half-Life 3 because producers, instead of coming under our attacks, will prefer to deal with more practical matter and more obvious characters, pushing the Black Hedgehog aside again. But there are two more things. Sonic Team was tempted to create a dark rival for Sonic before even the production of the first Sonic adventure was over. When it was finally decided to use this idea, Shadow was supposed to exist briefly, dying in the first game he appeared in.
This is what you wanted, right? This is my promise.
When I look at his concept art and see that rings on even the earliest ones, I come to the simple conclusion that he was doomed to this from the very beginning, that his only destiny was to die. Which is only confirmed by the author's boldness in making him a Superman beyond the Sonic world. Even the idea of Maria must have appeared later, because just look how the rings look like. Definitely not user-friendly. Iizuka wanted players to care about him, and in my opinion this was the story of an unaware girl for, but the website describing the game clearly says that half of Sonic Adventure 2 characters, including Shadow, didn't make a significant appearance in trailers until towards the end of production. This means that for a very long time no one thought about making him playable, so I would guess that as well about creating Maria who makes him as we know him today. Similarly, Iizuka dreamed of future plans for Shadow, hoping to have him star in his own game, but how many real plans were in it? How many of Shadow's personality? How many of that fantasies have survived the actual game? We know Shadow was supposed to disappear after the only game he appeared in. This is a fact.
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Changing this plan looked like sheer madness, like a cash jump. If I was working at Sega at the time and really cared about Shadow, I would have done everything to prevent him from returning. He had nothing but a heroic deed and a fascinating mystery that would have to vanish upon his return. However, it was not money, or maybe a bit, that decided about it, but pure love of his fans and, most of all, the authors. Yes, that was the second time when love saved the Black Hedgehog from death. From dying during his fall to Earth in Sonic Adventure 2. Shadow had nothing, so the authors allowed him to look for his identity on his own. Sonic Heroes has arrived, and Shadow has not only got a new purpose in his second life, but also friends.
Oh yeah, baby!
Then he got a new past in Shadow the Hedgehog game, and even a job in Sonic 06. People, even Sonic has no regular job and Shadow has one. It was these games that give us a chance to get to know him, to feel him real, not Sonic Adventure 2. Have any of you ever thought that it didn't have to be that way? What if a game like Sonic Heroes had not appeared or came out too late? What if Rouge would be left behind in Sonic Adventure 2 and Omega never appeared, so Shadow would be a fun attraction from the very beginning, alone, with development frozen in time, without a specific past and place in the world? In addition, for me, an equally dark vision is the alternative, where the authors underestimate the value of the contradiction of his character and put him on the same shelf as Knuckles and, later, Blaze, labeled Sonic Friends. No internal attribution to evil, no Mephiles seeing in him hatred of humanity, no future collaboration with Eggman, because Shadow is already good. The fact that someone like Shadow would be making an appearance in the series sooner or later was certain. There's something tempting about pairing heroes with their bad counterparts. Even his personality did follow this pattern. Everything else that made him still with us today and also so interesting that after 20 years he is still worth fighting for didn't have to happen at all. I understand you. I also wish to see my favorite again in something as smart and touching as Sonic 06 or in diverse and surprising Shadow the Hedgehog game, but has any of you ever thought that we might not even get what we have? Why don't we appreciate it instead of being surprised that 20 years after the character's creation, his story suddenly stopped inspiring the authors? Why don't we look at Silver, for example, who just didn't get them? His game, his team, his chance to thrive, anything? And the second thing, no matter how much you don't like Sonic Forces, you have to admit that it is a huge step forward compared to Sonic Boom and both Sonic rivals. And any game in which Shadow did not appear at all. Look, we have the whole Team Dark again. Shadow is, again, quite grim but helpful as well. Admittedly not in as lush scenes as our favorite games, but there are interactions between them. We have jokes in the dialogues. Hell, that's a lot!
You should have known better to send Omega on off like this.
When joining the fandom in 2018, I didn't realize how big the gulf this game is trying to bridge. It tries awkwardly, and the amount of things it should do better drives me crazy, but it tries. Someone in Sega thought, players want Team Dark, they want Omega, they want Shadow and Rouge showing sympathy for each other. And they decided to make the game look like it came out in 2007 rather than 2017. I mean, I'm talking about the plot because the graphics is... oh my gosh! Then came 2019 and Team Sonic Racing. Not good? And yet, Sega could turn it into a second All-Star Racing, full of characters that no one is interested in, but they decided not to do it because of the relationship between the characters. I know that Shadow focused solely on defeating Sonic is not what we dream about.
I add peppers and even more cheese than Sonic, just to prove I'm better than him.
But he is no longer a parody claiming that Sonic is weak, etc. either.
Team Dark, let's slag these robots.
We all heard what Sega said.
Sega mandated that Team Dark, Shadow Rouge, and Omega aren't friends. They're not friends, they don't like each other, they're just a brand.
But can the story end here when at the same time Sega was collecting opinions from us in the form of the mentioned survey? Despite our indecision, I believe that most of us wrote that should be written in it, so would Sega ignore everything that has there and consciously do to spite their fans? Sega wants to change. Do you remember that painful IDW issue 19 that made everyone sound pleasant? Or maybe you don't remember it anymore, busy with what is happening now. Almost exactly a year has passed and suddenly I am glad that my video recording stretched so much that I am able to say something about it. Well, as we all know, that inept story was forced by Sega, who wanted to deliberately portray the Black Hedgehog as a jerk. So, why I am saying this now and why does it look like an apology? But they always know that they can count on themselves when they really need it. And this show, identical to the official fanarts and, well, having the same lovely personality as Shadow. It must be just a matter of time before our black and red boy adopts him. It would be the greatest fan service I can imagine. As for Shadow, not much happened in games between 2013 and 2017, so check out Twitter takeovers. The first one referred to the unfortunate Sonic boom with many elements, which was also reflected in Shadow's first appearance in 2017, despite the fact the content was more like a Sonic Forces advertisement.
What do you think about Sonic Forces Speed Battle arriving in iOS?
There's a problem here, Doctor. I only use Android.
Shadow? Android? Am I an Android too?
The fourth Twitter takeover from the last year was, however, different, both in terms of design and character. Shadow was toned down. Instead of the previous unnatural crap, he got many amazingly touching lines.
I do my shopping at the local convenience store. It's called Maria's.
Although this also was that part when he tried to swear.
Whoa, hang on!
That name, Fourth Chaos Emerald.
He remained proud and somewhat introvert, but not in that repugnant way.
A new video game with me as the star. Just me. And my new sidekick, Big the Cat.
Oh no.
And him being teased by the two main heroes works awesome.
What would your ultimate day look like?
Dear Diary, today I brooded, and brooded some more, and then raised some chow.
Even in the first Sonic Twitter takeover, aka Ask Eggman, Sega had no hesitation in signing up with the character design from Sonic Boom, but with the 25th anniversary it all suddenly stopped. Quickly for a game that was created just 2 years earlier, don't you think? The Sonic Boom comic book that developed the series, did you know there was such a thing? Magically ceased to exist. The new IDW comic hasn't borrowed any characters from this variant of the universe, even though they feature much older Silver and Team Chaotix, and Twitter takeovers have jumped over to the old graphics. Maybe it's nothing fancy, maybe the cancellation of the comic was a result of a general breakdown with Archie, but note that Sonic Adventure also gave us a new look for Sonic, especially Eggman and Amy. It changed a lot of things, but we accepted them. Sega understands that in the case of Sonic Boom it was different. Otherwise they would have continued its existence, at least as a variety in subsequent games, just like they do with classic Sonic, or created another bold variation. And yet we got this, and this. And also the news from the very last few days, this! The new Sonic cartoon, with, yes, you guessed it, the modern Sonic design, what automatically means everything related to this design as well. I can't believe this is happening. The authors act as if they are trying by all means to erase the memory of that Boom mistake and abandon their attempts to flatten Shadow's extraordinary personality, and I will risk believing they are honest about it. I don't know what we will get for Sonic's 30th anniversary. It might not be as such a breakthrough as Sonic Adventure 2, it might not have as many memorable scenes as Sonic 2006 that you watch like a movie, but Stuff like Sonic Forces, IDW and other little things give me a shred of hope that what has passed 15 years ago can really come back. A shred of hope, or as we say in Poland, a shadow of hope. And because I think it's about time, Merry Christmas and Happy New Anniversary year!